have you ever looked at a classic Porsche 911 and thought to yourself, you know, I think that car would be better if it could drive through a river? Well, whether you have or haven't had that thought, apparently there's many people out there that have. And not only with the 911, but with other unconventional cars that typically aren't meant for off-roading, overlanding, or anything of the sort. So much so that this class of modification and the resulting transformation that the car undergoes puts it into its own category, the safari car. But in a non-literal sense, what is a safari car? And why do people think they're so awesome? You're watching Velocity Crew, and in today's video, we'll be talking about safari cars. As always, if you like this video, please click the thumbs up button, and if you haven't done so already, now would be a great time to subscribe. And with that, let's get to it. So, what exactly is a safari car? Well, it's not an official class of automobile that's like universally recognized by manufacturers, but more so a designation that people have given to certain cars with specific modifications or characteristics. And I say certain cars because from what I can gather, it really just applies to your standard sedans and sports cars that undergo this transformation. Whereas if you do the same modifications to a truck or an SUV, it's never really referred to as a safari car, rather just a lifted or overlanding vehicle. I think safari car is really something that gets given to a car that's not really meant to do the things that it looks like it's now able to do. Although, ironically, the actual phrase safari car stems from the specially modified trucks and SUV, which are used in the African wilderness and other areas to carry tourists through rough terrain and take pictures and observe wildlife, hence the safari name. That said, the quintessential safari car, in my opinion, is the Land Rover Defender. And that's the last time we'll be mentioning that car in this video, since there's no room for serious talk today. I actually haven't found one proper definition of what a safari car is. In fact, when I first started seeing these cars pop up, I thought that it was just an elaborate meme, but it's not. So in this video, we are referring to safari cars from the lens of the car enthusiast, and in the closest way that I can describe it, the official Velocity Crew definition is that it's kind of like a caricature of a rally car. It's got some functionality, maybe even some capability, but it's nowhere near as serious. Alright, I know you guys are probably itching to go and start a safari car build, but before you go running onto eBay, let's first talk about the key components and modifications that one needs in order to really call their car a safari car. First, you must start with a generic sedan or sports car, then suspension to raise the car, all-terrain tires, a roof rack, mud flaps, and adding some type of light bar and rally lights to the car's front end. Bonus points include a snorkel for your air intake, wider fender flares, a metal front bumper guard and bottom brush plates, and of course, the ability to deploy a tent or some other type of living quarters from your roof rack. And once you have all that, you are ready to never scrape on a speed bump ever again. In other words, you've got yourself a safari car. So why on earth would something like this be so popular, especially as of late? There's so many people doing these mods to their cars, and you know, the more I think about it, the more the answer is really quite simple. I mean, in short, it's kinda neat. I mean, you've gotta admit, when you look at these cars, they do have some charm to them, and you know, the practical application is quite limited. I mean, let's make it really clear, you will be able to get over speed bumps and clear potholes in spectacular fashion. However, aside from that, a large majority of people are not going to properly overland these cars after they built them. But it does make for an extremely character-filled and entertaining daily driver, and it's becoming extremely popular. In fact, I'm a part of a group on Facebook called Safari All the Cars, and it's got thousands of members in there, so let's take a look at some of their creations. And since it is on Facebook, out of common courtesy, I decided not to include the names of the people who posted these pictures, but if you do see your build, definitely leave a comment below. And remember, it's all in good fun. And starting our list off, we've got a wholesome father-son Beetle Miata Safari duo. Then we've got a classic 911 Carrera, followed by an interesting 997 that actually went through the effort of creating a custom 911 Safari badge on that sweet duckbill. Then we've got a Miata owner that said, "Forget cutting my fenders, I'm just going to take them off for maximum wheel travel." And I actually had to come back to this after ingesting some Tums because I thought this was a lifted Ford GT, but it actually turns out to be a Fiberfab Avenger GT Safari. And straight from what appears to be the Copart salvage auction lot is a Hellcat Challenger with cut fenders, OEM wheels, possibly a slight lift, and off-roading tires. And what gets me is they still have these stupid front lip guards on there. And next we have what appears to be a A6 wagon, showcasing some of that suspension travel with the snorkel. And next we have a Subaru WRX, maybe STI wagon that has been kitted with all of the Safari essentials. And keeping with the wagon trend is a Volvo V70 station wagon, which is actually very tastefully done. And if it has all-wheel drive, even better. And last but not least from the Facebook page, what took the cake for me was the Bentley Continental GT Safari Edition with wide fender flares and external fuel tanks. It looks like a movie car, but I really hope it is real. And you know I gotta give love to the Instagram render community because I've featured them in a lot of my other videos. So starting with Rain Prisk, we've got a Nissan Z Proto with a Safari setup and an overlanding tent on top. And next up we've got Brad Builds with the brand new BMW M4 lifted on some off-road wheels and tires with a camper attached to the rear end. I guess he took living in your car a little too seriously with this one. And Brad Builds again with the Tesla Roadster, and this one actually cracks me up because it's got these auxiliary solar panels attached to different parts of the car, and it just looks pretty silly, but at the same time not far off from maybe what someone might figure out in the future if they get comfortable hacking into the electronics of a Tesla. But I guess you could traverse through some mean dirt with those tires. And last but not least, another one from Brad Builds is the Lamborghini Urus Safari. And I'm going to count this one because the Urus is really designed to be more of a performance SUV, not an off-roader, in my opinion, so this is just kind of cool. And on the opposite side of the spectrum of do-it-yourself and homegrown builds, there are now reputable companies building official Safari conversions for well-known cars, specifically classic Porsche 911s. For example, former professional racing driver Lee Kane started his own line of custom-built classic Safari 911s called the Keen Project, and they've been extremely popular. In fact, YouTuber Matt Farah actually built one a couple years ago and gained the company and Safari cars in general lots of popularity. So how much does one of these Keen Project conversions cost? Well, as of last year, a conversion including the donor car was starting at $120,000, which judging by today's prices, it may be a little higher, but again, remember, this is just a starting price. So if you want to start customizing things and putting your own touch on it, of course, it's going to go higher. And if you want to go completely crazy, on the extreme high-end spectrum, you've got the master of enhancing Porsches, Singer, throwing its hat into the ring with a version of the Safari car called the Singer ACS. ACS standing for All-Terrain Competition Study. And the internet really just lost its mind when this thing was announced because it was just an incredible viral video that Singer released, and it just showed that this thing is going to be highly capable. And my guess is if it does come out, it's probably going to be over $1 million just because of how Singer goes about meticulously perfecting each one of their creations and just the bespoke customization that's available both on the interior and exterior of each one of these. Now, the reason I say if it comes out, it's interesting because Singer has since pulled everything off of their site that pertains to the ACS off. And some are speculating that this could be because Porsche is working on their own version, or it could just be some sort of rebranding that they have to do, because I know Porsche did have an issue with them actually leaving the Porsche logo on the car. So a little bit of controversy, but regardless, this thing when it comes out, it's going to be incredible. So now you have an idea of what safari cars are and a little bit better of an idea of the different shapes and sizes they come in. But the real question here is, how does it all come together? Meaning, does it actually work? Do people just build these things and have them sit in the garage as a novelty piece, or do they actually drive them? Thankfully, for the most part, yeah. There's countless videos on the internet of owners putting their homegrown or professionally built safari cars through their paces, and miraculously, they don't completely fall apart. It actually works. It's actually pretty cool, just like how you'd have groups of Jeep people or other like Land Cruiser clubs or whatever it might be. A bunch of safari car owners get together and either solo or as a group, they just go and drive through stuff. So it's pretty cool to see these cars being put through their paces. So what are the downsides of having one of these cars? I'd imagine putting large off-roading tires does have a negative impact to not only your fuel economy, but the overall speed and traditional performance of the vehicle. Now, I did hear that the Keen Project 911s still maintain their precision, but the offset center of gravity is definitely something to be considered. That said, aside from these large tires, I really don't see a major downside to these cars, at least on paper. Ultimately, I still want to get behind the wheel of one of these beasts one day and just see what all the hype is about and experience them in their full glory. It should be pretty interesting. You don't have to care about potholes, you have plenty of clearance, and it probably just takes a lot of the stress out of driving around in an urban or rural environment in a car that you probably shouldn't be doing that with traditionally. So, while answering the question of what is a safari car and why are they awesome, without driving one of these, it does pose somewhat of a unfinished perspective, but I will say that the pure unique factor, the different driving dynamics, and the unexpectedly versatile capabilities combined with doing this in a car that you are not supposed to just makes it seem awesome as an overall package. I mean, I did finally see one of these 911s in person a few weeks back, and it was just cool to even look at. And it's safe to say that I'll definitely be reporting back if I am able to get some seat time in one. Well, boys and girls, that essentially wraps up today's video. Hopefully, you learned something new about safari cars, and at the very least, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you like this type of content, subscribing to the channel really helps. So with that, I really appreciate all the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!